Hello, this is Dan Pro. I'm going to do a quick tutorial on how to make an IK and FK switchable and tentacle rigs. So this is actually a character from a forum member at blunderartist.org, and he was having problems with his IK and FK switching here. I'm going to show you how to set one of those up. And the reason for this rig, just quickly, the reason he was having troubles with it was mainly more not so much the rig itself, but well, it was because of the rig, and the reason for that is every bone in this armature was actually set to deform. So if we look at the vertex groups on our mesh, we've got IK and FK vertex groups, and that means that our IK and FK bones are actually fighting for control over that mesh. So you can kind of switch through here, and you can see that this is the legs are just kind of disappearing here, and the reason for that is there isn't a separate set of deformation bones where that is their only job. So I'm going to quickly show you how I would set that up, and I'm going to do that on this single tentacle here. I'm going to do Shift D to duplicate that, and I'm going to move it to a new empty layer. And I always like to start my rigs with everything sitting on the grid floor. You can see that this is actually below the grid floor here. So I'm going to grab it, G, Z, and drag this up so this tentacle is right on that floor there. You can see if I go to perspective mode, it's sitting right there. And since I moved that in object mode, there are now unapplied location values. I'm going to do Control A, apply my location, and I'll just select rotation and scale just to be thorough. I'm going to delete all the vertex groups off of this mesh here. Delete all vertex groups, and I'm also going to just delete the shapes, as they won't be needed. Let's go to our modifier panel. I'm going to delete the armature modifier, as well as change some of the subsurf on. I'm going to turn that on, but I'm going to turn the views down to 2 and render. You keep that wherever you want, and I'll just click off that display. So this is not needed really for this demonstration. So I've got my mesh all prepared here. I've applied the locations, rotations, and scale. I can just lock those because we never really have to manipulate that mesh anymore in object mode. We can do anything we need to in edit mode, which we shouldn't have to do that. Let's enable this other layer over here. Do Shift S, cursor to center, and I'm going to add my armature with Shift A, armature, single bone. Alright, now I've got both these layers on here. One of the first things we can do when I added that armature, it's added to the center of the world. It has no location, rotation, or scale values. Scale values in Blender, 1 means unscaled, so that is actually equal to 0 for location and rotation. I will just lock all of these. We don't need to manipulate our armature object. In object mode, we can do all of our manipulations in either edit mode or pose mode. And if I forget to say, I'm going to do a lot of mode switching here. If you see that the bones are blue, I'll be in pose mode, and if they are orange, I will be in edit mode. So let's select that bone. I'm going to go to side view here, select the tip, RX -90, and the reason I did that was turn on axis display and X-ray. The reason I did that was to set the axes of these bones so they're aligned with the world. You can see X-axis is going this direction, which is the red line. Y is going with the green line, and Z is up, which would be blue right there if we're in front orthographic view. So now we've got a root bone. Root bone is a very important bone in the rig. It's kind of a catch-all, and a lot of other useful functions for it, but I won't get into that now. I'm just going to add one single bone here, Shift A, as our, just scale this down here. This is going to be our body bone here. We'll call it, we'll start naming our bones, and I want to start collapsing some of these down here just to make everything a little bit nicer to see. I want to need item. So with the root bone selected, or the bone that will be the root, you'll call this root, and this is just going to be your body bone. I just need this basically to for parenting reasons. When we create our leg bones in our leg rig here, so we're going to select the body and then holding shift, I'm going to select the rib bone, Control P, keep offset, and that parented the body bone to the rib bone. If we go to pose mode here, you can see that the rib bone is now controlling that. If I scale it, rotate it, or change its location. Alright, let's get, I'm going to select this mesh here because I'm going to tab into edit mode of it and actually use this edge loop. So I can do Shift S, cursor to selected, and now my cursor is right at the center of that loop. Now I can go back to my armature and make sure I'm in edit mode. Do Shift A, I'm going to add a single bone there. And grab this tip, and start setting up these leg bones. I'm just going to drag one about right here and select the whole bone, W, and then to get the specials menu, and then subdivide. I'm going to change my number of cuts to 2. So I have 3 bones here now. Just kind of place these in the center of the mesh. Trying to make them equal, and then by selecting that tip, I did E and extrude. I'm just going to place this tip right at the top of this tentacle, and then select the whole thing, and I'm going to repeat the W, and then to get my specials menu, and then subdivide, and once again number of cuts to 2. I'm going to add, so I have 6 bones in here for our leg. Just going to even these out a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to name these bones. These will actually be our deformation bones, so I'm going to name them def.arm.001, and the reason I'm using 001 is so I can hover over this, do Control C to copy that, and now I can just select the next one in the chain, and I can just paste that, and it goes to 002, just repeat that, 003, and so on. And I will not be naming any of these bones .L or .R to start with. I'm going to make a single working IK FK switchable bone or rig, and then I will duplicate that work over. I want to parent that first deformation def arm 001 to our body. Keep offset. Alright. The way this is going to work is we are going to make 2 separate chains, and they are going to be identical to this deformation chain. So I'm going to select them all and do Shift D, and I'm in front orthographic view here, and I'm going to type GZ, and then while holding Control, I'll snap that bone up, and all these bones will actually be sitting on top of each other at the end, but I'm going to make the duplicates and move them up just for clarity and when we're adding constraints and things like that. At the end we will do GZ, and we hold Control, we'll snap them back down. But first I need one more chain, so Shift D once more, GZ, hold Control, we'll snap it up. Alright, so this will be our FK chain, so we will call this CTRL, because these will actually be our controls. fk.arm.001, Control C, Control V. You can see this sequentially numbering all of these things, and they're all gonna, every one of these will be 06, every one of these will be 05, and so on. Very easy to name this stuff this way. This will actually be our IK chain, but none of these bones that in this chain are actually going to be needed to be used by the animator, so they're actually mechanism bones. So MCH for mechanism, IK.arm.001, Control C, Control V, paste these down the way here. Now I just want to make some separations from all these different bone chains so I can turn them on and off as I need to, or get them out of my way. So I'm going to select all of my deformation bones. I'm going to type M, and then I'm going to move them to the second layer over here. I'm going to select all of my IK bones, move these to the third layer, and all of my FK bones to that fourth layer. So just typing M and then select that. So now I've got my first layer is just my root and my body bone, and then I've got just my deformation bones, just my IK bones, and just the FK bones. Alright, So our FK chain, let's get into pose mode here. Basically all we need to do for this one is select this very first bone, and we already had it parented to our body control there. We just need to lock the location value so we can't grab it and pull it out of its socket. Everything. And one other thing we can do, I'm not going to allow any scaling from this chain, because I think scaling is just one of those things that can actually break rigs very fast. This is going to be a very simple setup, so we will just, in order to not complicate things too much, we'll just lock everything for every one of these bones. One other thing we can do is actually add a custom shape to it, and I'm just going to use a custom shape that was already in this file here. So I'm going to select that first bone. I'm going to go to the display options and bone properties here and click wireframe, and then we check one of these. Ring arm. Alright, that'll work for us. I'm going to hover over that field there, Control C to copy it. Then I'm going to select the next bone, wireframe, Control V, paste it, and then just rinse and repeat that all the way down this chain. Our FK bones are actually already done. We're set to go. Alright, now we can just enable our IK layer, which is this third one. In order to make our IK bone chain work, we just need to, you know what, one thing I did not do was something that's very important, and I should have done it before I duplicated any of these bones. Let me actually turn on all these layers and then temporarily turn off shapes. I never set my bone rolls. You can see that our X is coming out this direction, and when we get up here, it's actually the X that's coming out this direction. We need to set all these bone rolls here. So what we can do is select that first bone. I need to be in edit mode for this, and I'm going to type R, or Control R, and I'm going to start rolling this around, and I want the Z axis to be pointing up and X to be going this direction. I know this might be hard for you to see on your screen. You see the X is pointing here, and Z is pointing up. So I'm going to select the next bone in the chain, and then select this to make it active. Control N, active bone. And I'm just going to keep repeating that. Select this next one, and then select the one I just fixed. Control N, active bone. And the reason I have to do this, usually you can select all these in a group and do that, but because of this curve, I just did some experimenting earlier, and it wasn't actually rolling the bones right. So I'm just going to do this one at a time. Control N, active bone. And I've got something screwy here. I must not have done that one first. Where are we? Try this again. Control N, active bone. Yep, and it's got those wrong. So, whoops. Control N. There we go. Now it's moving. Alright, now our axes are all aligned here. I'm going to select this one, and then this one is the active bone. Control N, active bone. Now I can just repeat that down here, and I should have done this, like I said, at the beginning with that first deformation bone. Control N, active bone, and I wouldn't have had to do this for every one of these bone chains after, because they would have been mirrored duplicates already. So this one, Control N. But I make mistakes too, and all things happen. Alright, now all of our axes are correct. You can see all the X's are going this direction, and our Z's are basically pointing up. I know they're kind of curved around here, so they would be pointing up if this was, this tentacle was straight, but it isn't, it's curved. And they are all fixed all the way around here. Alright. That's going to be very important to have all those axes aligned like that because we're going to use copy rotation constraints later that will kind of depend on that. So, alright, we've got our FK setup down here. Let's turn back on our shapes, and let's just turn on our IK layer. To make our IK chain work, we need to add 2 extra bones here. I'm going to select the tip of this first bone here, the head of that first bone in the chain, and the tip of the last bone in the chain, and in top-down view, that would be 7 on the numpad. I'm going to do E to extrude, and then G, Y, and drag these out, and now I've got 2 bones that are perfectly aligned with the world here, and they're identical, pretty much. This will be our IK target. So CTRL for control, IK dot target dot 001. Control C to copy. Whoops, I don't have to actually copy that to the next anything else. And that is it. MCH. This will be another MCH bone, mechanical bone, and it will be IK dot arm dot socket dot 001. Control C. Nope, I don't have to paint that either. I just need to change a little bit of our parenting around. I need to disconnect. I need to make our control IK target a child of the root. So we'll select that and then the root. Control P. Keep offset. Then I need to make the socket bone a child of the body. So Control P, and it already is because I extruded it from this bone. I need to make this first bone in the chain the child of that socket bone. Control P, keep offset. Alright, what I'm setting up here is basically an IK chain that does not use a pull target, so that's why I'm adding that extra socket bone here, and you'll see why here in just a minute, because we're going to add our constraint, our IK constraint. So we'll select IK target and then the last bone in that chain. So they're both active. Shift Control C. Now our add constraints with targets, we'll find our inverse kinematics, and now we want to select that bone and go to our constraints drop down here, and you can see that I've got an IK constraint and no pull targets. We just need to change our chain length to 6 because there are 6 segments in these bones, and we're gonna not count that socket bone there. And this should actually work right off the bat here. We can see it just works like a typical IK chain. One thing we can do, like I said, we're not going to use pull targets for this, so if I add a constraint from this bone to that bone, Shift Control C, copy rotation. So our copy rotation is on our socket bone now. It is copying the rotation of this IK bone. Now we've got a way to manipulate that leg without a pull target. Pretty cool. We can actually get some really weird things going on here if we rotate in different directions. Our XX would give us the main change our angle of our arm. Alright. So one more thing to do is let's actually work on our deformation bones, and I'm going to turn on B bone display temporarily so I can select all of these, and then hold doing Control Alt and S. I'm going to scale these all down. So we're going to use B bones so we can see our segmented bones. I'm going to select them one at a time here, and just once again it's just Control Alt and S, and you can change the display size of your B bones. And that should be good enough for us for right now. We don't have to be too accurate, I guess. Let's go to the bone properties here, and under our deformation tab we are going to add segments. So I'm just going to do 12, Control C to copy it, Control V, just paste these down the line. At least for this first 3 we'll do 12, maybe this next one we'll do 10, and this one will be, we'll just do 8 and 8. That should be good enough. Alright, you can see what our B bones are doing. You can get this nice interpolation and nice wavy thing in between. So pretty cool. That's actually going to make our deformations for our tentacle work really well. but we don't want our to have segments on our IK or FK chain, so that's why I waited to do that until now. Alright, I think that is pretty much all we need to do for our deformation bones. Now let's turn on our IK and FK, get back on a B-bone temporarily here. I want to actually move every one of these FK or IK bones rather, except for that target, to the layer directly underneath it. It's this layer right here. So move that right here. They are MCH bones. They don't need to be manipulated by our animator. So, but this is a controls. So let's add our control shape to it. I think there is another shape in here I can use. So I'm going to go to bone properties and find our display. I'll check wireframe. We just look through here. I think it was this grab one. Alright, so now we've got that as our IK controller. Now let's make everything work here and switch between the IK and FK. I'm going to temporarily turn off shapes and turn on all these bone layers just to make sure that everything is visible and it looks a little less confusing. Basically all I'm going to do is add copy rotation constraints. So first I want to copy the location of the FK chain. I'm going to select the first bone, then select the first bone of the deformation chain here, which is on the bottom. FK is on top, deformation on bottom. And then Control Shift C, copy rotation. And then I'm going to select the next bone in the chain and just do the same thing. So next bone in the chain of deformations, or deformation chain, and copy our rotations across. Alright, now that that is working, just to keep everything nice here, I'm going to go to my constraints and I'm going to name that copy rotation FK. So I know that this copy rotation is copying the FK bones. Control C to copy FK, and Control V, paste this all the way down the line. Naming isn't required, but it sure helps make debugging your rig a lot nicer when you have a bunch of different rotation or different constraints on those bones. So now let's just rinse and repeat that for this IK chain. I'm going to add a copy rotation from this bone to this bone. Copy rotation, and then just select each link in line here and rinse and repeat. And that will be our last one, and we can actually name this one, our copy rotation from this one, IK. Control C, copy. Control V, paste. Copy and paste sure saves a lot of time, especially if you're using these simple naming conventions like this too. And alright. So now we need to make our switch. How do we get this? Right now, by default, basically what's going to happen is, and this is the way the constraint stack works, is it's going to copy the location of our FK chain, and basically because this IK is directly underneath it, it's going to copy the FK, and then it's going to be overridden by the IK. So in order to make our switch, basically what we're going to do is add a custom property so we can turn our influence slider from 0 to 1. So when it's at 0, it's going to copy the rotations of our FK chain, and it's basically just going to ignore the IK chain. When it's on 1, it will still copy the rotations of our FK chain, but it will get overridden by our IK chain. So that's how our switch is going to work, and we're just going to add a custom property to one of the bones. I'm going to add it to this Control IK target bone. So I'm going to select that, and then go to our bone properties, come down under deform options, find our custom properties. I'm going to add a custom property, and it adds one called prop. I'm going to edit that custom property, call this FK/IK, and our min value needs to be 0.0 to 1.0, and that is equal to that influence slider, which goes from 0.0 to 1.0. And we can either put 0.0 or 1.0 in this property value, and if you want the FK to be on by default, put 0.0, and if you would rather have all of your bones in your rig have IK on, put 1.0. I am going to do 0.0, So I prefer to have FK on first. Oops, and I just lost that. I need to redo this. My naming, oops, FK, because you have to actually OK this after you change all these fields here. So you can't just click out of it. So let's do OK, and now we've got a property slider in our end panel. If your end panel isn't out, you'll need that out to see that new custom slider here, and it is going from 0 to 1, but it is not currently doing anything. What we need to do first is click on our value, either slide it to 1 or 0, either one, and we're going to click on that value and copy the data path. And now we are going to add a driver to the influence of this IK constraint. So we'll click on that influence and add driver. Now I'm going to have to open up our driver editor here. We'll go to graph editor and then switch from F curves to drivers. And I have that bone selected with that driver on it, that influence driver. You select that and type N to get my end panel out. This is going to be a very easy setup here. We can just go leave this at scripted expression, go to drivers, scripted expression. We will just call that expression var, because it is going to be equal to this variable right here. We need to change transform channel to single property. We need to pick our armature where that single property is, and now we just need to paste that data path that we copied earlier from our slider. So we can just do Control V by hovering over this path, and if I skip this out here, you can see pose bones. That is our FK-IK slider. So you don't actually need to know that syntax there. You can just go to that bone and just copy the data path and then just paste it. So that is actually set up. Let me select that. I'll just hit update dependencies just in case, make sure that it's going to update that. Then we'll go back to our 3D view, and we don't have to do that again. We just need to we've got that influence driver set up, and you can see that it's already at 0, and that is because if I select my IK target bone, I had it set at 0 right here. So if I set it to 1, it is now at 1 there. So we can just copy this, copy that driver, and then just paste it into our influence of all the other IK copy rotation constraints for all the other bones there. Paste driver, rinse and repeat. Nearly done. Alright, there we go. Let's turn on, well, let's go to edit mode here. One final thing to do is we need to reset all of our bones on top of each other. So I will just using B to box select. I want to make sure that I don't select anything over here for these other chains. So I'm going to select that FK chain that is at the top, G, Z, hold control, snap them on top of the deformation bones. A to deselect everything here again, and then just using B box select, I'm going to grab our IK bones, G, Z, snap them on top. Let's go to pose mode, turn on our shapes, and now we've got, this is just our body bone here and our root. Let's see here. You just turn on our IK chain here. Let's turn it to IK. One final thing we need to do. Where are our deformation bones here? They are. That's not it. That's not it. It's got to be here. All right. So this is the deformation bone layer. I want to select everything else and turn those on. Select every bone in there. Do Shift W, and then that's going to give us the toggle bone options. And we want to click deform, and then we get some items over here. We're going to go to type to toggle, and we are going to disable deform for every one of those bones. And it basically just this deform option here, it just unchecked all of them all in a big batch here, because we don't want any of these other bones to deform our rig. We only want our deformation bones to be checked there, so we can double check, make sure that they are checked on, and they are. When you add a bone, basically that deform option is almost always checked on by default, so it's good at the end to turn that deformation checkbox off for all other bones. And we can make sure that we've got that right by selecting our mesh, selecting any bone in our armature, do Control P, set parent to armature deform with automatic weights. And now let's select that mesh and look at our vertex data, and we should only have arm bones in here, and more specifically def arm 01, 02, 03, 04, and 05 and 06. Now let's see what our hard work here has gotten us. Let me select that. Let's turn on some of our controls here. I'm going to select this IK control, and we are in IK mode, button 1, and it should move with it. And we can also rotate our leg any which way we want. Alright, pretty cool. I can actually go to B-bone display, and you can see what's happening, how those B-bones are working on that. Very simple IK setup. Now let's check our FK layer here. And just select any one of these. Actually, I need to have the IK select that one and turn it to FK first. Alright, now I can rotate these around. There we go. Of course, we'll probably want to go in here and clean up some of those weights and things like that to make things a little better. We can probably just bump up our subsurf levels here a little bit for this. I think it's pretty low poly here. Yep, very low poly. And there we go. We've got an IK and FK switchable rig. A couple other things to talk about here is duplicating this effort across. We can actually duplicate all of those leg bones and create new working leg bones from that, with one exception. There's basically one thing we need to do. Well, a few things we need to do actually. Let me go back to octahedral mode here. Just get everything, turn them all on and reset them. Alright, let's go to edit mode here, and we will just select all of these bones for the leg, do Shift D and then GY. We'll just make our new bone set here. You can see that all of our bones should be sequentially numbered to higher numbers now, because we use that simple bone method here. So we ended at def 6 over here. It's going to start with 07 and go to 012 rather. Alright, one thing we need to, or a few things we need to do is, let's select our deformation bones, in which we're right here. Let's go to pose mode. Our influence drivers did not get copied across, but we can do this really quick. And one of the reasons I didn't copy that across too, let me actually turn on our IK control layer here. This data path is going to be different because with that duplicated set of bones there. So we need to copy that data path. Then we're going to select our deformation bone here, the first one. We are going to let's select the one that we had actually working here that has that. We're going to copy that driver, and we're going to paste it to this one over here. But now we need to go back to our driver panel. Let me see here. So we'll go to graph editor, drivers, and we need to change one thing in here. We'll just change that data path by Control V. We just copied that, enter it, update it, and now this should work with that new leg. So pretty simple. But we have to do one more thing here, and that is copy that updated driver that we just added right there. We'll copy that, copy driver, and paste that to all the new influences to our duplicated leg. Paste driver. And now we should have a working IK and FK switchable set of bones over here. Let's turn everything on. So you can easily duplicate all of that work across, start working around. I would do like the 4 on this side, and then you can also do, use this little trick after you get all that working. Do box select everything once I've got, pretend for a second I had all 4 legs already rotated around here the correct way and duplicated across. I can go to armature and we can auto name left and right, and now we would have it would auto name all these .L for and then we can duplicate that across again, select them all. Oops. I will select all those leg bones, go to armature, and we can symmetrize, and then we'll make our right side legs. Of course, we do still need to go in there and add, redo our influence driver, but that's not too big of a deal. You can figure that out pretty easily, and you'll have 8 legs in no time. So I hope this helps. And I'm getting close to 40 minutes here, so I really wanted to button that up. If you've got any questions, just ask again on the forums there. Good luck with your Inky the Octopus, and anybody else that's watching this trying to figure out how to do an IK or FK switchable rig. Good luck, everybody.